Welcome to this week's edition of It's Called Soccer, the show that brings you the biggest stories, the best guests, and so much more. I'm Rebecca Lowe, host of the Premier League on NBC, and I'm joined as ever by 8-time Premier League winner Gary Neville and 2005 Champions League winner Jamie Carragher. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your digital shows and podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, of course, as well, so that you don't miss an episode. We come out every single Wednesday. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We discuss Newcastle United winning their first major trophy for 70 years and whether they can keep hold of their star players.
I think they will lose players, unfortunately. They will want to play for Real Madrid's and Liverpool's and Manchester United's and Bayern Munich's of this world.
We break down how damaging the cup final defeat was for Liverpool.
I do feel when you've got players of the quality of Liverpool, you can't put in a performance that poor in a cup final.
We chat Sergio Ramos and red cards.
A fan threw a ball at me, so I just kicked it back in his face and I got sent off at Everton, Goodison Park.
Taylor Twellman drops by to talk MLS, the potential move for Antoine Griezmann to LA, and the future for the US men's national team.
This group doesn't have a signature win. And if this group says their signature win is Mexico, with all due respect, we've already done that.
And one of Europe's most lethal strikers, Jonathan David, joins the show.
Strikers don't care about that, Jonathan. As long as you score, it's all right. You can smile at the dressing room in the end. They were the strikers I played with.
Yeah, I think as a striker, when you score, you can say you did your job.
That is all coming up on this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. All right, you two, you've had an interesting weekend. You were both at Wembley, Newcastle bringing 70 years of hurt to an end on Sunday when they beat Liverpool 2-1 in the final of the Carabao Cup. Goals in either half. Dan Burn, Alexander Isak saw them take victory at Wembley Stadium. I think it was 32,000 fans, Geordie fans, witnessing their first trophy, as I say, in 7 decades. I mean, that basically means that hardly anyone probably at Wembley had seen them lift silverware until Sunday. I know, Gary, you were on co-commentary. Jamie, you were pitch side as well. None of us, because we did our picks last week, none of us, Gary, thought that they would win. Was that an Eddie Howe tactical masterclass?
Yeah, I, to be honest with you, that probably wasn't said enough at the end of the game. Obviously, it was mentioned that they give Liverpool a real going over in every single way. Obviously, the emotion of the occasion. I even felt quite emotional when that second goal went in. I don't know why. It's just obviously it was 50 odd minutes and you knew there was a long way to go. And I expected Liverpool to come back. But the way in which Newcastle applied themselves in that game, the way in which they went about it, they were brave in everything that they did. Yeah, they did win duels. They did win second balls. They did play forward. They did, to be fair, compete and run and harass. And did everything. I mean, in midfield, they really ran all over Liverpool, which I've not seen happen, to be fair, too many times. But I actually thought they even played well on the ball. I thought Tonali and Guimaraes really handled the ball well. It was a brilliant performance. It really was. And they were right at it. And that they got that balance right between passion and emotion and obviously playing with their heads, because that was the question before the game. Could Newcastle play with their heads? Would they get carried away? This expectation of 70 years. Honestly, it was a really special day and it was a special performance. They played really well.
Do you think winning the League Cup will make players more likely to stay? Or, okay, the pressure is off, because there was huge pressure to win a silverware at Newcastle. Pressure is off. I've done my job. I can leave now, go to a quote unquote bigger club. Which side do you think?
I actually think it helps them stay. The only one I think is Isak, is the one I think the real elite would be looking at. The other ones are good players, but I think the good players for Newcastle and they could play for other big clubs in terms of maybe teams who are in the Champions League week after week. So they definitely have that quality. But are you going to break the bank for them when you've maybe got someone of similar quality in your club? And I look at the midfield players, you know, all three of those central midfield players could play for Liverpool. You've seen them take on Liverpool's midfield. But would you go and break the bank? They're not that much better than Liverpool's midfield. It's a toss of a coin. But with Isak, he's so much better than a lot of strikers that Liverpool have got or Arsenal have got. You know, teams who are regularly in the Champions League and competing for the Premier League. So he's the one I think people would look at. And I was just thinking about his situation and that I think it makes it easier for them to keep him because there's just a feel-good factor. We've seen those scenes at the end of the game, the hugs, the night out after the cup, lifting silverware. It could easily be a case of, let's give this another 12 months. 100%, I think Isak stays if they qualify for the Champions League because I don't think the club would let him go anyway. And they just say, we're in the Champions League, we don't need to sell you money-wise. The problem they could have is if they don't make the Champions League, then I think that's when it's not really about what happened in the cup final. It's actually, do the club need to sell?
What do you think, Gary?
They are going to struggle to hold on to Isak at some point. He's going to want to play somewhere else. That's just unfortunately the nature of the beast. The fact they haven't won the trophy for 70 years is a reflection of obviously Newcastle's own problems in that period. You've got to take responsibility yourself, but also how difficult it is for football clubs to break through and win trophies. And on Sunday, it was a great day for football, I feel. And I thought that when West Ham won the European trophy a few seasons ago, when Leicester won the league, if your team doesn't win, I know it wasn't great for Liverpool on Sunday, and if it had been United, I'd have felt the same. But there's sometimes you've got to look at a game of football and think it's more important that we see days like that. We need Newcastle's to win trophies. We need Newcastle to win the league. We need them teams that basically Nottingham Forest to be in the top four. We talk about a competitive league. And it's important that we try and keep Newcastle great. We keep Villa great, Everton great. We've got to keep these clubs absolutely great in this country, or else we're going to lose a lot. And it is getting to be more difficult for these clubs to compete because of the financial demands. So I think they will lose players, unfortunately, Rebecca, because the reality of it is Newcastle's a great football club, and we didn't see that any more than on Sunday. But they will want to play for Real Madrid's and Liverpool's and Manchester United's and Bayern Munich's of this world. It's just natural that these players will want to play at those clubs at some point if they can.
Just quickly, before we finish on Newcastle, Jamie, I know you've mentioned Liverpool need a striker and you think Isak would be perfect. We all know that Arsenal would love him too. Other than Liverpool and Arsenal, could you see him going anywhere else in the Premier League? Well, why? No offence, but why is he going to Man United? I mean, he could go to Chelsea, but then why would you go to I'm not sure. Why would you go to Chelsea in terms of the way the club is run at the moment?
No,
what do you think?
I think the only two options would be Arsenal and Liverpool because they're both sort of crying out for a striker. But I just look at how long he's got left on his deal, and the ball's in Newcastle's court. It's not really an Isak. I think once you get to 2 years, it's almost a 50-50. No one wants to allow a player to get to 12 months. But Newcastle could keep him for another year and say, okay, we'll sell you in a year. We're going to get the same sort of money. Liverpool, I don't think Newcastle gain anything by selling him now unless they have to. And that's why I feel like if Newcastle get into the Champions League, there's no way he's actually leaving the club, even if he wants to. I think the club just say, no, you still got to do another 12 months and in 2 years' time, we can make a few quid and you can move on.
Okay, let's move on to Liverpool. Jamie, I've got to start with you. Some people are calling it the worst performance by Liverpool in a cup final since the 1996 FA Cup final against Manchester United. Jamie, what were Arne Slott's mistakes?
I think he'll learn a lot from it. And not just the final. I think probably the lead up to the final, because in some ways you probably look at it and think, was the team the right team to pick? And that's only saying that after the event, because I think most people would look at that Liverpool team and say that's probably Liverpool's best team. But how they went into the final, they were never going to reach the heights of how much it meant to Newcastle, whether that was supporters or players. You couldn't match that. But they've definitely gone into it and played it like it was a normal game, not a cup final. And that's something to look at. And I think I have a little bit of sympathy with them the longer I think of after the game, is that I think Eddie Howe spoke after the game, and it almost feels like they've been preparing for this game for over 2 weeks. He spoke about, with us at the desk on Sky, that they've been practicing the set piece that Dan Burn scored off for 2 weeks. And he said when he came to Anfield, he completely played a team and set up tactically completely a different way they were going to do in the final. But he had that luxury. Liverpool didn't. They obviously still going for the league title. They had the Paris Saint-Germain games. And I think Liverpool players, after they lost on the Tuesday night, they came in the next day for a warm down. They were off the next day, I think, which was then the Thursday. So they basically prepared for this game on the Friday and the Saturday. And Gary knows as well as me, I think when you've got the accumulation of games Liverpool have had, even that Friday and Saturday probably wouldn't be too much training. It'd probably be a lot of video work. maybe a little walkabout in a tactical shape. Maybe I'm only going back to my own playing days. And it just seems to me, as soon as that game's kicked off, I could feel it in the first 15, 20 minutes. It wasn't just about energy, it was mentally everything. And Newcastle were on it. I was watching the way they were pressing, and when they were jumping, obviously Gary was in the commentary position, but I had a really good vantage point to see the whole pitch. And everything was on point, and you could just feel it. And Liverpool just weren't ready to play a cup final. And yes, I just said I have a little bit of sympathy for them, but I do feel when you've got players of the quality of Liverpool and how good a team they've been this season, you can't put in a performance that poor in a cup final.
I remember being in the studio before the Southampton game. So the Southampton game, which was at Anfield, was between the PSG and the PSG. And they'd obviously won in Paris, but come back. And I just remember being in the studio and seeing the lineups drop and thinking, hey, he's got the biggest week of his career coming up with that second leg against Paris and then the League Cup final. But I think he maybe left 2 on the bench, but the Salahs and the Van Dijks, they were all playing, weren't they? And I think maybe, I know it's hindsight, and of course we all have that benefit, but I do remember at the time we all went, that's interesting. I'm not sure Mo Salah's delighted to play against South. I mean, they're more than 50 points below them in the table. They didn't need to play, did they? And maybe then they could have tried to match the energy more. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's maybe a good point. I mean, to be fair, our manager was very brave around trusting his squad. A lot of managers, I thought Klopp was brave last year in the final when he brought on the young lads. A lot of managers, to be fair, talk about trusting the squad, believing in the squad, but when the reality kicks in and they're under real pressure and they need to use the squad, they don't do it. And I can't accuse Arne Slot of that really, in the sense that, the league is a priority. Let's be clear. I mean, if Liverpool win the league this season, it's going to be, and they are going to win the league, it's going to be a phenomenal year for him. And that's where his name will be up in lights forever. I agree with Jamie. It was obvious 15, 20 minutes in that they were right, but I still carried that thing of, well, I'm not really worried about that because I know Liverpool will come good at some point in the game. That's how they manage games. Liverpool can withstand pressure, not play well, and then they'll just go and give it to Salah. They'll go and give it to Gakpo, Diaz, all the rest of them, and they'll get a goal. But the energy was really poor. And I wondered that just sometimes the impact of the PSG game maybe in going out, it does have a big impact going out in Europe. It really does, particularly at clubs like Liverpool. Rebecca, can I use your question, please, from before? Because I think it was a good question around Newcastle. Does it make it easier for Newcastle to keep players or lose players? I felt that after the game on Sunday. You talk about the impact it'll have on Arne Slot. Do we think it would have an impact upon those 3 players that are out of contract? Would they feel like that? I'm not sure it will, but I'm just, Cara, that question. Do you feel like that actually them losing on Sunday in that game would just maybe feel, from a Salah, Van Dijk, Trent point of view, would make them feel slightly different about staying or not?
You know what worries me? Not from their point of view, more the club's point of view. So I think there's been Van Dijk and Salah have almost come out and said they want to stay. Now, of course they do. I mean, who knows what... I mean, listen, Mo Salah's been saying he hasn't been offered contracts, hasn't he? He's what he's basically saying. If someone puts a contract in, or if they match my terms, I'll sign. But what them terms are, we don't know. My feeling and worry is that it kept feeling like Mo Salah and Van Dijk were winning the PR battle, because Liverpool were top of the league, won every game in the Champions League. They're talking about trebles. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And in the last week, I hope this isn't the case, but maybe the people at the club are going, is this a little sign of things to come in the future? Is this Salah being off form, or is this the future of sort of Salah? And if they don't win as much, are they in a stronger bargaining position to say, we want 4? I don't know what they're asking for. Or are the club right to say, hang on, that we think you're only worth this? I mean, you've won the league, we haven't won the Champions League, we haven't done this, you haven't won the Ballon d'Or. Do you understand what I mean? So I was actually thinking, I think this means actually the club are maybe not going to shift the goalposts at all, maybe, or maybe only slightly. If you'd end up maybe winning the league. Imagine Liverpool would have won the league and the Champions League. Salah's the Ballon d'Or. I mean, Salah's give him what he wants, isn't it? All that again. So, no, I think the club will look at that and think, our offer's right. This episode of It's Called Soccer is brought to you by Huel.
Jamie, the football never ends. We've got international break. We've got FA Cup coming up as well in the next couple of weeks. I think we might, though, both of us be taking a vacation, which is perfect, is it not, to take some Huel with us. What are you doing?
Exactly. I'm going to go over to Malta and Poland to watch my son play hopefully for Malta in the World Cup qualifying games against Finland and Poland. So I'll be on the move a lot. I'm not sure where I'll be eating, what I'll be doing. So I'm taking plenty of Huels with me. I'm going to take vanilla flavour. That's my favourite. I'm going to take them with me. And basically as good, if not better, than a meal. So I'll be taking 4 or 5 of these with me and probably have one a day.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Pack them in your suitcase. I'm going to do that as well. This is their black edition, ready to drink. It's a complete meal, as Jamie says, in a bottle. It's packed with 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, and it is low in sugar as well if you're trying to watch your sugar levels. It's all handy in one bottle. It basically takes the guesswork out of healthy eating because you just grab it and you go. As Jamie said, whether you're working, whether you're on the move, whether you're on vacation, traveling, whatever it is. My favourite flavour is always the chocolate. You said yours is the vanilla, but have you tried the strawberry banana or the iced coffee flavour yet though, Jamie?
I'm one of them, Rebecca. When I like something, I stick with it. I stuck with Liverpool all my life. I've stuck with Nicola all my life. And I'm going to stick with vanilla all my life, a vanilla Huel.
Liverpool, Nicola and the vanilla Huel. I mean, that is the flipping triple treble right there. Okay, it is a complete meal that costs you less than $5. So join the community of hooligans with our exclusive offer. New customers get 15% off. Plus they get a free gift using our code ICS at huel.com/ICS. That is 15% off plus a free gift for new customers with our exclusive code ICS at huel.com/ICS. Cheers, Jay.
It's Called Soccer is brought to you by our partner FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Whether you want to bet on the match result, your favourite player to score or assist, or live bet a winner in stoppage time, FanDuel is the place to get in on the action. Plus, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's $200 in bonus bets. Just go to fanduel.com/ICS. And if you already love betting on the big match, FanDuel is giving out same-game parlay profit boost tokens every weekend for a chance to increase your winnings. Just go to fanduel.com/ICS or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get in on the action. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And if you win, the payouts are instant. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only, $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
Okay, guys, we are delighted to welcome back former New England Revolution striker, Apple TV main, I'm calling you the main MLS analyst because you are, Taylor Twellman, to It's Called Soccer. Taylor, we got together to preview the season a few weeks ago. Vancouver Whitecaps, just out there becoming just the 7th team in Major League history to start a season with 4 straight victories. Are you surprised?
I'm shocked. They also went to Monterrey and scored 2 away goals in advance in CONCACAF Champions Cup as well, Rebecca. So, Major League Soccer is an interesting one with the salary cap restrictions and the way you structure rosters and whatnot. Managers have to coach up players. It's not just players 1 through 7, 1 through 12. You've got to find a way to coach up players that are at the bottom of your roster because eventually you're going to need them. And for a franchise like Vancouver that doesn't spend a lot of money traditionally, they're missing their best player in Ryan Gold. Jesper Sorensen's had to find a way to push the right buttons. The fact that they went to Monterrey, did that, then go to Dallas and win 1-0 on the road, this is their best start in franchise history. Does it continue? I don't know. I think they're going to have to spend some money this summer when there's more players available. But when it's all said and done, nobody, and I mean nobody, would have had them winning 4 out of the gates. No chance.
I want to talk about another manager, a manager who, when he was the head coach of the US men's national team, had a lot of attention on him, Gregg Berhalter, on the field and, as we know, of course, off the field. So when he went to Chicago Fire, I think it was really interesting to a lot of people. Their start to the season, they've won their last 2. They've scored multiple goals in all 4 of their games, which is their longest such stretch since the 2022 campaign. What have you made of Gregg Berhalter at Chicago Fire, Taylor?
I'm not surprised. What he did with Columbus before taking the US men's national team job, is very similar to what he's doing with Chicago early on. Whoever plays the 9 position for him, Kai Kamara hadn't scored more than 20 goals in a calendar year. He scores 20 goals. He's up for the Golden Boot and MVP under Gregg Berhalter. He's very tactically rigid. He's very structured, but that usually suits the 9. They've gone out and spent real money on some attacking players, and Kuipers is now scoring goals. It's not a coincidence. He's still got his work cut out for him in Chicago. Obviously their stadium situation at Soldier Field, Chicago's got to get back to being a real market. It's a top 4 or 5 market in this league. And when the league was at its best early on, Chicago was there. Greg knows that. He's operating as the president and GM, along with also being the manager. So he's got his hands full, but so far so good. But I'm not surprised because he's going to make players better by using tactics in his system.
Taylor, can you shed any light on the reports going out of Spain about Griezmann maybe joining LAFC? I mean, is there excitement in the league? Is this a big talk at the moment?
It's interesting, Jamie, right? Because I feel like that rumor's been floating around for almost 18 months, and yet he still really hasn't made that move. I think when Lloris left Tottenham, I think many people read the tea leaves and said, this is a move that is getting Griezmann to LA. Now, Griezmann's been on the record for a long time of saying, I want to play in Major League Soccer and I want to play in LA. The interesting part to that is when Messi then shows up in Suarez, that all of a sudden turns into a different market. So was Miami ever going to be affected? Listen, I expect Griezmann to be in LA. I expect him to be playing for LAFC. I think they need him. They've got another Frenchman in Denis Bouanga that's been fantastic. Over 50 goals in 2 seasons. Olivier Giroud's been a real struggle. That's not any real hot take. It's been a real struggle for Olivier Giroud in this athletic type of league where it's played at a high tempo. He's been disappointing, yet he's another Frenchman, right? So, Jamie, it's a long-winded answer of saying, I will be stunned if Antoine Griezmann is not with LAFC this summer. I will be shocked.
Do you think he could have a huge impact on Giroud, not just obviously the team and the league, but I mean, do you think that's something that could sort of kickstart Giroud's career over there?
I would say yes on a certain level of comfort and understanding how he plays. Griezmann can play as a false 9. He can play as a winger. He can play multiple positions. So Griezmann is the kind of player that suits someone in Major League Soccer when you're only allowed to go out and get 3 DPs and pay them however you want to. Giroud's contract, if I'm not mistaken, is done at the end of the year. I think Griezmann's coming in more so for the next 2-3 years. I don't think it's a move to get Olivier Giroud going. However, it would suit them, wouldn't it, to get him scoring 5, 6, 7 goals going into that latter part of the regular season into the playoffs. So, yeah, it would work. But I think Griezmann may be coming in to play as a false 9 if you want my real opinion. I don't know if Steve Cherundolo wants him playing wide for this team because they're struggling in that position. It's only a Bobasi. Olivier Giroud's not playing the important games. It wouldn't surprise me if Griezmann ultimately is their 9 in that system that they play.
Taylor, it was about 6 months ago that the US team announced, or the federation announced Maurizio Pochettino as national coach. It's obviously huge excitement. You've got a big game coming up in midweek. What's the mood around Maurizio sort of 6 months in?
It's interesting, Gary, because I've in part of the issue with the US men, and listen, I'll raise my hand and take ownership of some of the narrative around it. But we've never had a generation of an American player playing at a high club at some of the biggest clubs in the world. We've never had that. We've had Americans playing in Europe, but not operating at this level, particularly in Serie A with Pulisic, Weah, McKennie, and whatnot. And so naturally we say, because this is what we do in the media, this is the golden generation of player. But Jamie, Gary, I've said this to Rebecca multiple times, and I'll say it to you guys, this group doesn't have a signature win. And if this group says their signature win is Mexico, with all due respect, we've already done that. And so what's very interesting to me is now this World Cup qualifying cycle, there is no World Cup qualifying. Copa America was abysmal. That opportunity was completely thrown to the wayside. So we're really looking at a group of players with high expectations where the normal sports fan in America sees AC Milan, Chelsea, Dortmund, all this and says, wait a minute, the Americans, now we can win the World Cup. And you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. that signature win, we're going to have to wait for the World Cup. And I think that's an interesting pressure on the group. Regarding Pochettino, he's got experience. You guys know this. I don't need to talk about any of that of dealing with pressure and dealing with all that. However, he's dealing with a group of players that has high expectation, but they don't really have that signature win. They don't have that tangible evidence that this group can do it. I think they need to win Nations League because they wasted Copa America. And I think the biggest concern, I've said this now for the past month, I think Pochettino won't say it publicly, but privately will. If the World Cup started tomorrow or this summer, he doesn't know his center back tandem. And Jamie, Gary, you guys know this better than anyone. Rebecca and I have talked about this. The one thing the Americans have kind of always had is this mentality and identity that we're going to have to defend against the top 10, 15 teams in the world. And that's always been based on 3 or 4 center backs that you can count on. If the United States men are counting on Tim Ream 14 months from now at 39, 40, I think that begs the question. They've got good players the other way. I think Tyler Adams is if he stays healthy and continues to play at the level he is, that's a huge upside for them. We haven't seen Tyler Adams for the last, I would say, 20 months really playing for the United States men. But Gary, I think it's interesting. Can Pochettino right now say if the World Cup was this summer, who his best 11 is, and then say that 14 months from now? I think those are two different answers.
What you just talked about there does remind me a little bit of Euro 96 when we had the Euros, obviously, in England, but we hadn't qualified for 94 as a country, and 92 had been disappointing. So the mood going into the tournament in our own country was quite low. You know, the performances were unspectacular. There were actually low crowds watching the games, like 25, 30,000. And we were actually, to be fair, drawing at Wembley against teams that we really should have beaten. So it may be a little bit like that. But my feeling is they'll probably get themselves up for it. And once the tournament comes, they'll deliver. But fingers crossed, I hope that happens for him.
Well, and to your point, though, this is the largest World Cup. So it's very difficult for me because there's no history to handicap a 48-team tournament. I don't know what it's going to look like. What is that? Usually the round of 16 game for the United States men has always been a real difficult one. Belgium in 14, Ghana in 10. So what does that look like? Right now, not knowing that, I would say quarterfinals are bust. You have to use the home crowd to your advantage. And if we're ever going to consider ourselves a footballing nation around the world, we've got to be able to, in the biggest moment, particularly at home, at least deliver that. But then again, I don't know what it looks like because it's 48 teams. We've never seen it.
Well, we've never seen 48. Well, don't worry. The next one's going to be 148 by the sound of it. So we've got to enjoy this one. Taylor, so it's a big week for Mauricio Pochettino. Thursday against Panama. And then the final, if they make it through that, against either Canada or Mexico, Sunday at SoFi Stadium. It's going to be must-watch TV. Thank you, as ever, for your time, Taylor. We will see you back on It's Called Soccer soon, we hope. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Thanks Taylor. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor.
This show is sponsored by Love Every. You know, I really wish I had the play kits by Love Every when my son was younger. These are not your average toys. Love Every's play kits are designed by experts to help children learn through play, and they're delivered straight to your door every couple of months. These kits are incredible, guys, thoughtfully made with stage-based playthings that grow with your child for years of engaged learning and play. And parents, you'll love them just as much as your little ones do because they come with expert-backed play guides and the Love Every app with tons of activity ideas and guidance so you can easily support your child's development at every stage. Plus, everything's made from premium, safe and sustainable materials, so they're not just good for your child, they're good for the planet as well. I'm going to be gifting these to every one of my friends and family who've got little ones. Give your child what they need for long-lasting learning and fun as they grow. Explore the play kits at loveevery.com. That's lovevery.com. And It's Called Soccer viewers and listeners get an exclusive discount on your first subscription order by entering code SOCCER at checkout. Visit loveevery.com and use code SOCCER. We are delighted to welcome one of the most lethal strikers in Europe to It's Called Soccer. In 5 seasons at Lille, he has scored over 100 goals and is their all-time record scorer in European football. Wow, he joins us from Canada's training camp in LA as they prepare for their CONCACAF Nations League semi-final against Mexico, which is this Thursday at the SoFi Stadium, where he will be hoping to add to his record 31 goals for the national side. Welcome to the show, Jonathan David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So much to get through. We will get on to Canada in just a tick, but we've got to start with domestic matters at Lille. 7 Champions League goals, taking Lille to the last 16 of the competition. From an outsider looking in, Jonathan, are you playing right now your best football of your career?
Yeah, I think you could say that. Obviously, I haven't been playing European football every season at Lille, but I think this one might be my best campaign yet. Obviously, playing against some strong teams and scoring against them, so obviously helps. But yeah, from the outside looking in, I think it's been a great campaign. I think obviously we had better hopes, but at the end of the day, it's football and it can go either way.
Jonathan, you've scored against some of the biggest names in European football. What has it been about sort of Lille and the French teams this season in the Champions League? Because it just seems it's just been a revelation, the French League and the Champions League this year, and you've been at the heart of that.
Yeah, I think there's not a real reason. I think the French league is a very strong league with a lot of good teams. Maybe that people tend to look past, but I think this season the Champions League will put a lot more light on the league and how good the players are and how good the teams can be. And I think the difference is, in League One, we all depend on each other. I think there's not one or two guys that are gonna win you the game. It's gonna have to be through a collective, a team, and I think this season we did that very well.
Which strikers do you look at when you were growing up, and which striker do you look at now that you feel like you learn most from and sort of base your game on?
Yeah, for me, when I was growing up, was Thierry Henry, Samuel Eto'o, Didier Drogba, all like different type of strikers. But I think I all enjoy all their games and how they played, how they were different, but all good at the same time. And nowadays, I don't really look at strikers specifically. I think, I watch a lot of games, and I just try to watch maybe their movements, how they play, their decision making, and just think to myself, would I have done the same thing? Would I have thought differently? But to model my game around or anything like that, not anyone.
Jonathan, who's the defender that you've played against so far in your career that you think, oh, he didn't give me anything. He didn't give me a kick. It was so hard against him.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think when you look at PSG, I think Marquinhos is always a good one. I had a lot of difficult games also against Kipembe. Obviously, when you look at Van Dijk, which is only one game, but also a difficult game, didn't give much away, didn't even give you the chance to think that you would get something in the game. So yeah, there's been a lot of tough defenders, I think.
But you scored against Van Dijk, didn't you, in Liverpool? So it's 1-0, David.
1-0 David, but we lose the game.
Strikers don't care about that, Jonathan. As long as you score, it's all right. You can smile at the dressing room in the end. They were the strikers I played with.
Yeah, I think as a striker, when you score, you can say you did your job.
Obviously, I'm respectful. I won't ask you which clubs you would like to go to in the future because that's being too direct. But obviously, you're in a fantastic league at the moment, the French league. When you look at the Spanish league and you look at the German league and you look at the English league, which league, when you look at it, do you feel like you would most belong in and would most like to play in?
To be honest, I think I can adapt to every league. Obviously, every league has their differences. I think Premier League is a lot faster and physical than all the other leagues. But me, always when I grew up watching a lot of La Liga. I wouldn't say that would be my preferred league, but I think that's a league that I enjoyed watching the most. So I think one day, I would like to play there. But will that happen? I don't know. I'm not opposed to anything. We'll just see where the future takes us.
I want to ask you a little bit about confidence because obviously, I mean, we're defenders, so we don't understand what it feels like to be a goal scorer. We have no idea. We have no idea whatsoever. And other than sort of a goalkeeper, I think centre forward, striker is the most difficult and challenging position on the pitch, one that comes with the most scrutiny. And we always talk about when strikers are confident and then they lose confidence. Just talk to us a bit about that. I mean, obviously, you're confident at the moment. You're in great form, but when you've not been confident in the past, how has that felt and how did you get out of it?
Yeah, I had difficult moments, especially my first season, even first 2 seasons at Lille. I think I had dry spells that I wasn't scoring so much. For me, in those situations, it's always putting my focus on the work, extra work after training, always working and knowing that someday it's gonna happen. It not might be yesterday, but I think that the fact that I put the work in gives me more confidence going onto the pitch and knowing that I did what I could to. So if I have a situation that I have to score it. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I know I put the work in, so I have no regrets.
Jonathan, can I ask you about your story? Because I think for anyone who doesn't know it, born in Brooklyn, New York, 3 months old, you moved to Haiti. 6 years old, you moved to Ottawa in Canada. At 18, still so young, you moved to Ghent in Belgium. Now in Lille in northern France. How do you think being adaptable and moving to different countries at all different ages has helped you as a person and as a footballer?
For sure. I think, as a person, it brings you out your shell. Normally, I'm more of a reserved, shy guy, but I think having to move countries, having to be in different cultures makes you evolve as a person, makes you come out your shell, and you can't just be in a corner talking to no one. You have to get involved within the team, and you have to show everyone that you're involved in the project, in the team. So you can't really be a shy guy in a team environment. And as a player, I think everywhere you go, you have to adapt because the culture is different, the playing style is different, the players are different. There's different expectations of you. So yeah, I think the more that I've grown up in different places, it hasn't always been easy, but I think it helped me grow as a player.
Jonathan, the Canadian team that you're part of now, Rebecca's just mentioned that the record goal scorer there, 31 goals, something to be proud of. But, I mean, how good is this team? Is it fair to say the team that you have now could almost be classed as a golden generation of certainly players that you've got within the squad now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we've been seeing that for quite a few years. But obviously, as the years go on, there's more players coming, better players coming, and as you can see, a lot more players playing in Europe, in the Champions League also. So I think with the years to come, it's even going to get better. But as of now, I can say this might be the golden generation for Canada.
I want to ask you about Jesse Marsch because obviously very well known in the United States and lots of people thought he would become the next United States manager. He chose Canada, which is a huge coup for them. When he was the Leeds manager and when we've seen him in other jobs, we love him in the media because he's so full of energy, he's so chatty, he's so honest, and he's so vibrant and enthusiastic. Tell us a bit about what he's like. Is he just the same as that? Describe him if you could when you work for him.
He's the exact same. Exact same. He's always very social, talkative, talking to everyone, always putting the good humor. But when it's time to work, he switches off and becomes the coach that's very exigent and very hard on players to get the best out of them. But as you said, I think, all the qualities you named and how he is as a person, he's still the same guy.
And it feels, Jonathan, like the aura around the Canada national team since Jesse Marsch came in has elevated. It feels like there's a really strong, direct focus now and a lot more attention on the squad. Does it feel like that from the inside?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think once he came in, he brought his ideas right away and the style he wanted us to play with the players and the qualities that we have as a squad. So I think the players bought in well, and we've seen that this is something that can work for us and helps us. And obviously, we had a great campaign at the Copa America. So I think always that adds a little bit of extra trust, and maybe he's right, and you just want to believe more and try harder to achieve bigger things.
Jonathan, we hear a lot about, the World Cup and how it's going to affect the US national team. Obviously, Pochettino came in there. But, I mean, what is the actual target for the Canadian national team as well? I mean, there's a lot of talk. Obviously, the bulk of the tournament will be in the US, but there's obviously games in Canada as well. I mean, what are the targets for yourselves?
Honestly, we haven't put any targets yet. I think, obviously, sky's the limit. You always try to go as far as you can. But I think as the first steps, is making history. I think, going out of the group stage would be something amazing that we've never done before. So I think as a first step, that would be something amazing. But then after, you try to go as far as you can in the competition.
And you're in LA this week. You're at Canada's camp ahead of, tell us what's happening Thursday.
Thursday is our semi-final game against Mexico to try to win a spot on the final on Sunday.
Jonathan, listen, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you luck Thursday against Mexico at SoFi Stadium. Fingers crossed you reach the final on Sunday. I know there's not many competitive games for you guys leading into the World Cup in 2026 because you've obviously already qualified as host nation. And best of luck in 14 months' time? Incredible. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate you joining us on It's Called Soccer.
And thank you guys for having me. Thank you very much.
Chaps, just a couple of other business items for you. The Julian Alvarez double kick on the penalty, Atletico against Real Madrid. I mean, by the way, is there anything more annoying in life than doing something by accident and it getting ruled out? And then the next morning, the governing body like, oh yeah, do you know what? Now we look at that, probably should change that. Oh, cheers the next morning. Do you think, I mean, that is definitely now got to change. The accidental double touch. It's insane, Jamie Carragher.
No, I agree. I mean, I was watching the game and I thought he may have done it. And you know what it reminds me of? There was a penalty scored like this in a Carling Cup final. I think Middlesbrough won the cup final against Bolton up here in England, and Bolo Zenden did exactly the same thing, but there was no VAR.
Yeah.
So that was given at the time of the cup final. But I mean, you go back to what the rules for. It's so the rule, someone can't just touch the ball forward and then go and blast it in, basically, when the rules came out 100 years ago. So I think most people would look at that and say, you know, it didn't completely change the trajectory of the ball or anything like that. And yeah, I think if the only good that comes from it is that we can change that rule, it may not have been a bad thing in the end.
I'm not sure I ever thought we'd ever mention Bolo Zenden from a Middlesbrough Bolton Cup final on this podcast. That is unbelievable memory once again, Jamie.
That's why I'm on the podcast, because we've got to have somebody on here who's actually got football knowledge, who actually knows what they're talking about.
Gary, not on that, on Alvarez.
I agree with Jamie. Because I've got no football knowledge, Rebecca, to be fair. So, no, I agree. It's just a massive unfortunate happening. I mean, Real Madrid. I focus more on Real Madrid and just think whatever Real Madrid need to do to get through in a Champions League game, it will happen. They will just get through.
Okay, former Madrid, talking of, captain Sergio Ramos was red carded. Did you see this? For the 30th time in his career? 30th, for his new Mexican Liga MX side, Monterrey. That was the team that Taylor was mentioning earlier. Ramos addressed his latest dismissal on social media. He said this, quote, "Very important win away from home against a difficult team. Time to rest and prepare for what's next. P.S. It was obvious I couldn't leave this league without a red card," which I absolutely love. Jamie, you only got sent off 3 times, which... I don't know if this... I think that's quite impressive, actually. 3 times as centre-half in your entire career, considering you played like 1 million games. Gary got 4, which is a little bit dodgy being at fullback. Do either of you have... I mean, you obviously regret getting sent off, but was there a red card that you actually thought, no, I had to do it? I still to this day, I'm glad I did it, had to do it. Jay?
I mean, I didn't know if you were going to say I was glad to do it or regretted it. It's probably the same, actually. I mean, I threw a coin at the Arsenal crowd because they threw coins at me. That was the one I regret. It was one of them where Dennis Bergkamp, would you believe that? So you're saying you can't believe I only got sent off 3 times, but I wasn't someone who lost it. I didn't get too many yellow cards or red cards, really.
No, and you weren't. But I just think the number of games you played, you weren't a dirty player. But just the number of games you played was so many, second highest in the history of Liverpool Football Club. 3.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is, if I only got sent off 3 times, one of them was throwing a coin. It wasn't 2 yellow cards. It wasn't a straight.
What were the other 2? Can you remember?
One was a professional foul. It was a little bit. It wasn't high. It was a red, but it wasn't like it was away of Fulham. And another one, a straight red at Charlton, wasn't even a foul.
So basically once.
Really? I got in front of this striker, got my arm across him to get in front. The referee blows for a foul. I go mad because he's blew for a foul. And then he gives me a red card. It was just like, you want to see my reaction. It's just the fella was a fella called Pringle. He was South African, played for Charlton. And I was at Charlton's ground at the weekend as well. That's where it brought back the memories, watching my son play for Wigan.
Once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah, so to be honest, I think I got sent off, a proper sending off once in my career away at Fulham.
Okay, the stats say 3, but we say 1. Gary, what about yours?
No, it's 1.
Yeah, I kicked, similar to Jamie, a fan threw a ball at me, so I just kicked it back in his face and I got sent off at Everton, Goodison Park. I then got involved with the Scouse Mafia in a Manchester derby. So for City, I think Fowler, Joey Barton and Matt Manman played for them, and they just played me like a fool. They all came over to me at once. Anyway, you know the one where Matt Manaman puts his head there, but you go like that and lean forward, and you get and yeah. So that was that one. I got sent off at Tottenham for 2 tackles on one tackle on Ginola, David Ginola, and the other one was in midfield on I can't remember who it was. Oh, blonde-haired midfield player for Tottenham. Can't remember his name.
Oh, Freund?
Maybe Freud. Yeah, maybe it's Freud. And then I can't think of my fourth. I mean, the Everton one, the Tottenham
Was
one.
it away at Barnsley?
Maybe away at Barnsley.
No chance, you know that, Jamie.
It was away at Barnsley. I was watching the game, and I think it was a straight red. It was a bad tackle.
Yeah, he was at Barnsley, yeah. Shit, how's he remembered that, him?
You know what we need to do on this podcast? We need to have a little segment, like testing Jamie's brain. And we are going to ask him, like, the most random questions from the last 30 years of football. I want to do it. We're going to introduce it, because that's unbelievable, by the way. Sergio Ramos, 30 red cards. Well played. Well played. Gentlemen,
30.
Lovely.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Cara.
That is all we have time for on this episode of It's Called Soccer, but make sure you join us next Wednesday. We're going to be joined by former Masters champion and huge Real Madrid fan, Sergio Garcia. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get the show, from Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and we will see you right back here next Wednesday. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.